I had a relapse about 3 months ago, and I was going through a really tough time. And I went to see the SHO at an outpatient's appointment, and I went in, and straight away he was looking at me as the illness first, Graham second.
Can I stop you there? How did you know that he was doing that? Or what
Because
made you think he was doing that?
He was telling me how I was feeling and why I was behaving in such a way, rather than listening to me.
Right.
And it was obvious from as we went on through the session, he hadn't actually read my notes, because he was disagreeing with things I was saying. Like, part of my illness is I hear voices, and I was explaining I was hearing these voices and how loud they were, and they were constantly at the fore of my mind. And he was disagreeing with me, saying I wasn't hearing these things. But on the next session when I saw him, it was obviously he'd read the notes, because he believed me then. So
the first time he was disagreeing, saying you're not hearing voices.
Yeah, you're not hearing voices, and you're not experiencing this, and there was things happening in my life. Well, I call them life events. There was things happening outside, at home, and to him they didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter that I was struggling financially, even though that was constantly on my mind and worrying me.
So it's almost the opposite of the first example.
Yeah, it was completely opposite.
He was just honing in on the illness in a way, and not thinking about the wider perspective.
Yeah.
So he didn't seem to be acknowledging what your experience was.
Yeah, well, he wasn't acknowledging me as a person, and well, I didn't feel he was acknowledging me as a person, and that things that I was going through at the time had a contributing effect to why I was feeling so low, and why the voices were at the fore of my mind all the time. Because the voices are there all the time, but when I'm well, it's more of a distant whisper. But when I'm ill, they're right at the front of my mind, and are very loud and completely draining and constant. And I was trying to explain to him that I was having financial troubles, and I was trying to explain I was having trouble with my children at home. But he wasn't interested in that. He was just interested in, was I feeling suicidal? Had I felt like hurting myself? Because those are what I think are questions and conditioned responses. He was looking for answers to them questions.
Why do you think he was asking those questions?
I suppose it's partly to be it's risk assessment, to make sure I wasn't going to hurt myself. But I think he was just looking for like an automated response, so he can go, yep, that definitely that illness, so I'll give him these pills. And it was
almost like a sort of even a tick box.
Yeah, a tick box. Yeah, definitely. As if you were on a conveyor belt, and it was like, oh, yep, that goes in that pigeonhole there. That's what I felt like. He was trying to pigeonhole me.
And I'm just thinking, because you're describing when you're unwell, that the voices become very pressing, very dominant, don't they? And it must be very difficult to communicate when you're like that.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm just wondering what sort of response would be helpful from a doctor, a professional, when you're in that kind of place. What would make it easier for you, do you think?
I think it's to look at you as a person. This is Graham, and he's come with this illness. And there will be certain behaviours and feelings I'll be having, but to look at the large picture rather than just. If the first time you meet someone, because they say first impressions count, so if the first impression you get of your doctor is that he's checking the time or he's not really listening, you're not going to want to explore perhaps avenues of treatment or telling him personal things. Things that are affecting you. And if you haven't got that rapport, you're not going to tell him about the wider picture either. You're not going to want to tell him that you're thousands of pounds in debt, or your wife's just run off with the milkman.
Which I guess could be crucial as well, couldn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
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 I mean, for example, if it's somebody who's going through a marriage breakup, you know, to them that might be the end of the world.
Mm. Can I move on to a different subject now, just to ask about diagnoses and your experience of having a diagnosis? Have you had a diagnosis?
Yeah, I suffer from psychotic depression.
Yeah.
And when I'm very stressed or very low mood, I do have a doctor told me once they're called auditory hallucinations, and it's really prevalent when I'm feeling very low. And it tends to go up and down, depending on life events or situations I find myself in. And touch wood, with medication and with a regime I go through with myself, I'm able to beat it most of the time. Yeah, because before I had the diagnosis, I just thought I was a crazy person, really, and really thought I was going insane. And it took me a long time to pluck up the courage to go to my GP and say, look, strange things are happening to me. I'm hearing voices. I'm seeing things that are not there. Because at the time, the only thing I had to do with mental health was knowing about places like Springfield Hospital. So I thought, if I go and see my GP now, they're just going to lock me up and throw away the key. Because that was my understanding of mental health at the time.
So the diagnosis was, in a way, reassuring, was it?
A little bit, yeah. It made me. It was reassuring, the fact that yes, there's definitely something wrong. It's something that can't be cured, but it can be fixed and make things manageable and easier for you. So yeah, it made a big difference. And this is how we're going to try and fight it.
Right. And
it was put as that. It was something that you could beat.
Right.
As the same way as somebody who's had cancer or something else, they can beat the illness.
Yeah. Somebody said, "This is the way we're going to try and fight."
Yeah, it was a two-way thing.
Two of us together.
Yeah.
And was that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. Because I thought that this was it then. At that time, I thought, you're never going to get any better. Because things just seem to be getting worse and worse and worse. And I just felt it wasn't going to improve. But you know, a few years down the line, and I'm back living a normal life and working and living like anybody else.
And again, this sort of sense of working together.
Yeah, definitely.
Perhaps acknowledges you as somebody who can work and more active as well.
Yeah,
actively work with the doctor, the professional.
Yeah, it's definitely a collaboration. It's no good if he just says, right, tick these boxes and here's a prescription. That doesn't solve anything. Because it might improve you for a while, but it won't last very long.
Right.